All right, everyone. Welcome to the Myokinetix podcast. I am super excited for this episode. We have the man himself, Chris Streveler from the New York Jets. Hey, man. Welcome to the show.
Hey, appreciate you having me on. This has been, we planned this, 6 weeks ago, so it's been on the calendar.
I mean, we both got our fresh cut this morning.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, funny story. My barber called out sick last night, and I say, bro, I need a cut.
I'm doing the podcast.
Yes.
Gotta get right.
Like, I have to look good.
Yeah, I had my wedding this weekend, so I had to get right for that. And
I know your beard's all trim, looks nice.
I'm growing it out. I can't wait till, have I told you what I'm doing with the beard at the end of the season?
No, what are you doing?
So I'm growing the beard out. I'm letting I'm trimming the sides, keeping it clean. The end's getting long. Mm-hmm. Come January, I'm shaving it all. I'm going handlebars off the chin. We're gonna be hanging. I keep telling my girl I want to braid them.
It's
gonna be as dirty as possible. It's gonna be unbelievable.
It's actually very Viking.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah.
So
no, I love it, dude.
Yeah, January it'll be good.
All right, so whoever listening that wants to sponsor this guy for his beer oil company out there,
somebody
please.
Get me something, man.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
So, all right, man, let's get into it. Obviously, you had a great preseason. Just coming in, showing up, balled out. But I don't think many people have heard of you before. Your stand, but you have your resume is stacked, dude. So why don't we dive in about that? Let's tell the listener a little bit about you, who you are, where you come from.
Yeah. I'll just start from the beginning. I grew up in the Chicagoland area. Went to high school there. Out of high school, I really didn't have very many offers to go to college. I had 2 scholarships. My first one was to South Dakota State, and then I picked up another offer to University of Minnesota going into my senior year, and then I just committed right on the spot when they offered me. So I went to Minnesota, did 3 years up there, graduated with my undergrad in kinesiology. Didn't get a ton of playing time. At one point I was playing tight end, receiver, quarterback, running back, just anything to get on the field, and just wasn't really working out. So I ended up transferring to University of South Dakota. Got my master's there in sport management. Finished up my last 2 years. Runner up for player of the year. Had some success our senior year. Did a pro day. Had a good pro day, put up some good numbers, and then just didn't get really any looks in the NFL, so I ended up going north to Canada, spent 2 seasons up there. Kind of crazy story. When I signed there, I was signing on as the third. First day of camp, the backup retires, so now the backup job's open, and so I'm kind of in a competition. Had a couple good preseason games and had kind of won that backup job. Going into the season, the last practice of camp, the starter got hurt and went down. Oh. So I actually ended up starting my first 3 games up in Canada, which was kind of crazy because it is a different game up there. So kind of still learning the rules and just how everything works. Started my first 3 games up there, then was kind of a backup, had a package, whatever. Long story short, second year up there, took over halfway through the year, and we ended up winning the Grey Cup Championship, which is the Super Bowl of Canada. And then from there, had some workouts with NFL teams after that season. Ended up signing in Arizona. Won the backup job. Was there for a couple seasons. Got released, and then kind of get into the whole what was last year. I got released in November. Finished the season with Baltimore. Ended up signing with Miami in the offseason. Was released about halfway through OTAs. Signed on with the Jets, kind of as a camp arm type deal for at the beginning of camp this year, and had a solid preseason, and here we are still on the Jets. So it's the journey, man.
I think. All right, so let's go back because there's so many
lot
questions
to unpack.
Yeah,
there.
So I just love obviously this is the most unconventional ways to get into the league, right? And we talk in passing, the people that we work with that I have the pleasure to work with is we have guys who just obviously got drafted, and just go straight to the league. But most people I enjoy working with are someone like yourself where have to go through the grind, go through the trenches, come out, go back down.
Like
go
yourself,
back up.
man,
Yeah.
the grind.
It's the grind is what I appreciate. And let's go back to so pretty much your first school, right? You were pretty much the original Taysom Hill before Taysom Hill, right? Just doing everything.
Yeah, sure.
And what was the switch in your mindset when it comes to I just want to get on the field to as soon as you transfer to get your master? What did you have to do to I want to be the guy. I got to make sure I show up.
It was basically, just me as a person, I'm a team guy, right? So, my first year at Minnesota, I redshirted. Second year, I ended up starting only 1 game. I had the craziest stat line. I was 1 for 7 with 7 yards passing. and I think I had 15 rushes for like 170 yards.
Wow.
So that was my stat line, and then I never really played again after that. So going into my third season, which was my redshirt sophomore year, I could see that I wasn't really going to be playing, and I'm like, look, at the time I was weighing like 230. I was big, I was fast. I'm like, let me just try to play special teams and just try to get on the field to help the team. And that was really my mindset. And it just never really ended up. Nothing ever really came to fruition. I played a couple games at receiver, but didn't really get any targets or anything. And then just the way things were working out, I could see that I wasn't really going to get any opportunities. So as I thought about it, when I was transferring, I actually had a bunch of schools that wanted me at receiver and only a few that wanted me at quarterback. But just as I kind of started thinking about it more and taking visits, playing quarterback is such a unique position where there's a lot of responsibility on your plate and a lot of preparation that goes into that. And that's one of the aspects I love the most about football. And so, I had some bigger D1 schools that wanted me to play receiver, but just the idea of playing quarterback, I was willing to just go down a level, go to South Dakota, and just really enjoy my last 2 years of football and play the position that I love playing.
And then as soon as you got there, do you have to beat any guys out, or it was just...
Yeah, so there was a guy that was coming back from the previous year, was a starter. He was a senior, and then there was a redshirt freshman that was really good, that we were kind of in a three-way competition. Ended up winning the job and starting week 1, and then the redshirt freshman guy that was behind me, he was my backup for 2 years and ended up taking over once I left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now when you were going through all that in college, do you even have like was it part of your game plan? Like, hey, I want to go to the league. So that was always in the vision?
It's the dream as a kid,
yeah.
And like for me, that was always my dream, was I wanted to go to the NFL. And like, it was always something that was in my mind. But honestly, when I transferred to South Dakota, my mindset kind of changed, because when I was at Minnesota, I feel like I just put a lot of pressure on myself to like be great and just like make it to the NFL. And like if things weren't going good, it just like really wound me up, and I was so uptight. When I got to South Dakota, my mindset changed, because at that point I had kind of accepted that I probably wasn't going to go to the NFL. And I was just like, I just want to enjoy football and play the position that I love, and just be a part of a team that appreciates me. And I just was excited to play the game again. I didn't even really care about anything else. And, going into my senior year, like, I was just like, well, I don't really know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll just go to Europe and like play over there for a year and enjoy it. And, we just ended up having an unbelievable season, and that's kind of when Canada got in touch with me.
I think that's got to be a different, man, when you have that fun aspect when everything that you do, right? So like I always have a reminder in the morning. It's like, make hard stuff fun.
Yeah.
That's always like how I look at things. Like, all right, because hard stuff come at us all the time. And like, I think the people who can find a silver lining of making it fun, those are the ones that's like winning in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And I mean, it's just, first of all, in the game of football, there's a lot of hard stuff. Training is hard. You play, in college, you play 10 games and you train the entire year for those 10 games. So if you don't embrace that process of training every day and trying to be your best self, it's going to be a grind. And B, it's all about, in life and football, whatever it is, attacking adversity. Like, there's always going to be adversity, and it's about how you respond to that stuff. Because if you crumble when adversity hits, then you're going to have a tough time getting going. But if you attack those challenges and overcome them, that's when you learn about yourself and grow as a person.
And like, this is what I love about your attitude, man, because I've seen guys who first round drafted, things didn't go their way, they kind of have like a fit, and then just kind of plummeted and just no longer in the league anymore. Where with you, I like to see is like the way you're approaching it is like, man, everything is just like, like when you play Mario and you get to that bonus round, you're like, oh, I just went in the right pipe, and next thing you're like, all these coins, you're just jumping around like, oh shit, all this new stuff.
Is that me right there? I'm in my bonus round, just embracing
it. The way you're going about it,
it's
like,
not a bad analogy.
Yeah, like the way you're going about it, like yeah, do you have your ups and downs? Yes, but once you do have those opportunities, you do make the best out of it, because you're like, hey, it's go time.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about this all the time, when we work together. My question for you is, and it's going to be great for a lot of people because they can apply this to many aspects of their life. When that voice comes, right, that voice of resistance, that gremlin voice that you have in your head that just telling you, hey, you're not going to make it. This is not what you're going to do. Your dream is not going to be there. How did you talk yourself out of it, or what do you usually do?
I mean, I don't think that voice has ever been stronger than it was for me at the beginning of camp in New York here, because, you kind of alluded to it, but my first 2.5 weeks, I literally did not get a single rep. practice, walkthrough. I didn't take any reps. And so for me, my mind is just like, oh, this is it. This is my last chance. And I kind of knew that coming in. And it's so hard to fight that voice inside your head that's like, hey, it's not working out. It's over for you. But for me, just thinking about all the adversities I've been through in this game, I've been through literally probably every situation someone can go through in this game. And what I've always relied on is just work as hard as you can, do everything right, because at the end of the day, if you do that, you can look in the mirror and accept the outcome. So for me, when that was happening, every day I would grab, a couple of the bubble receivers that maybe weren't getting a ton of reps in practice, and I would throw routes on air, even just top of routes, just to rep the routes that we were working in practice that day. And then I would just do like some tempo runs and some sprints every day, just to keep myself engaged and just stay with my process, and just believe that I don't know what that opportunity is going to look like. I don't know when it's going to come, but if it does come, I'm going to be ready to take advantage of it, because if it comes and I'm not ready to take advantage of it because I was hanging my head, I will never be able to forgive myself for just giving up and just not taking advantage.
So just listening to your story so far, it seemed like the opportunities, they do come, but they come when you least expect it.
Dude, 100%. And that's what I try to tell everybody that, this is my 5th year playing professional. And so I feel like I can, lend some wisdom to people. And whenever they're down, I just say, look, when you are the most down and you think this opportunity is never going to come, I promise you that's when it's going to come. And so you have to fight that feeling of just, I got to give up, whatever, getting comfortable, like whatever, it's not going to happen, because that's when it's going to happen, and you got to be ready for it. Because time and time again throughout my life, like I said, I've been through so many instances of adversity in this game. That's when all those opportunities come. And if you're not ready to take advantage of it, then that's kind of where your journey ends.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And obviously as a business owner and someone who, always just grinding, right? We talk about this all the time. We bond over that. I always have series of quotes in my head, as I'm going through that, because obviously we all have that doubt. It's always going to be there. That's how we survive. So first and foremost, we need that. Otherwise, we're going to die really young.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just going to do dumb stuff, right?
Right.
Especially as guys, all we needed to do is someone to talk trash to us, you won't do it.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're just doing
the ultimate peer pressure. You won't.
And now you're dead, right? So when you have that voice, it's there as a defense mechanism, right? But sometimes, because we live in such a good society in a way where everything's kind of taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. The Maslow hierarchy of needs, all our stuff's taken care of, you and I, right? We have our shelter, we have our food. The rest is all the self-esteem and the self-actualization, right? But when you try to get to those top of the pyramid, that's when the voice is strongest, because you have more time to criticize yourself, and you have more opportunity to compare yourself to other people. So when those time comes, I always go to I love The Dark Knight. You've seen it.
One of my all-time favorite movies.
Right? Was it Only the Darkest Before the Dawn?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then the one before that is Alfred's why did we fall, Master Wayne, so we can get back up? Right? So as soon as I have those moments, I just go to my go-to quotes. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Or I'll give myself 24 hours to just, sob in the shower. And then from there, I was like, all right, now let's go do something about it.
I got to pull up one of the quotes that somebody had sent me. It was crazy what happened, because it was a day when we were kind of coming up on the first preseason game, and I was really feeling down, because I'm I'm not even going to play in this first preseason game. I'm just going to get cut. I don't really know why I'm here. And it was crazy because I had 3 people reach out to me in one day. And this is probably the Wednesday or Thursday before the first preseason game, when I was really just feeling down, and shared this quote. And it's a Bible quote, and I'm not the most religious person, but I do think that it just really hit me hard at the time. It said, "Let us not become weary doing good. For the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And that just hit me, because I'm all right, I can't give up, because if I just stay patient and keep working, eventually it's going to happen if I don't give up. And so whatever quote it is, that just seemed to hit me at the right time, where I was like, okay, something in the universe is trying to send me a message right now to not give up, because something's going to come my way. And that's just how I interpreted people reaching out to me in that message of, okay, let me not give up. And now the next week I'm throwing a game-winning touchdown pass.
And dude, I love that, because I saw you that week, and we were talking. I was like, I'm feeling it, man. It's gonna come. I was like, I don't know what it is.
You were on the train the entire time.
I was like, come on,
yeah,
it's gonna be there. But the whole point in my mindset is I have many mentors, right, that coach me through this whole journey of entrepreneurship and business owner. The best advice I got is all right, let's say that whatever you say in your head, it's going to be 100% right. Why would you want to be right?
Right.
Like, why would you want to prove yourself right? Like, isn't it, because we love proving other people wrong, but the last person we want to prove wrong is us, right? So if your head said like you're not good enough, why would you want to be right?
Right. And that just goes back to manifestation. That's something I believe in, is like your words are strong and your thoughts are strong. And so if you want something, then manifest that with your words and your actions and your thoughts, because like you said, if your thoughts are right, then make them positive and make them right and manifest what you want, because I do believe that those thoughts and words are powerful.
Yeah, I mean, when I was on a flight to San Fran, I sent you a book, right? Think and Go Rich, Napoleon Hill. It's a book I read every single year, and this guy wrote this book like so many years ago, and it's like still #1 seller book in business, personal development, and everything was all about, like, he called it auto-suggestion, which is pretty much what you're telling yourself, how you are talking to yourself. Because when you came in here today, right, we were talking about like how you're always breathing like around 16,000 breaths a day, and you have to do it right. But think about the one person you talk to the most throughout the day. It's yourself.
Yourself, yeah.
So you got to make sure that like what you're saying to yourself is on par with who you want to be.
Right.
And coming from a Buddhist background, I don't know if you know this, but we're always talking about like mindfulness meditation. And the part of that is just letting the thought be what they are. It's as if like watching a car just go by. You don't judge it. You don't put value into the thought. You just let it be. Yeah. Right? And then from there, as you do more and more of that, you realize like, oh man, like I don't need to identify with all these negative thoughts. Right? I can pick and choose what I want to identify with. And I think, like, listen, even the first preseason game, you come back in, we're all hyped. Next game, you're like, I don't know, man. Because it's been like that, right? But then all it is like, you're like, we always have that moment of the I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But when it does happen, we're just like, I can't believe it just happened. Yeah, right? Absolutely. But
I think that's why you surround yourself with good people as well, and like-minded people, whether it's business or whatever it may be. And I think the more I've talked to you in here, I mean, we've become friends up to this point, and like, it's like business, the correlation between business and football and the mindset, it's really not that different, you know? So I think that's why you surround yourself with like-minded individuals that, you know, maybe if you are having doubts, they can help reaffirm some of those positive thoughts and give you perspective from somebody that's not involved in the situation, you know? So I think it's just good to have good people around you.
No, it's 1,000% correct, man. Just because you are the average of the 5 people, right? And people keep saying this quote, but if you just look at the circle that you have, right? The fact you have 3 people texting you that day, like that means a lot, right? Yeah. Just because, again, because you just don't know, like from my perspective, right? If I can give positive energy, I don't know what that's going to do to other people, because you just don't know what people are going through that day. And if I can send a text to you, or you can send a text to me, and you just don't know when that person needs the most, right?
Absolutely.
And it just worked mysteriously. And I do feel that when you get closer to someone, you develop a relationship, you have this feeling. Like the other day, my buddy Jerry, who lives in North Carolina, I was like, you know what? I had a feeling I just called Jerry. And I called him. He's like, oh, man, I'm going through it right now. And we just talked it out. Yeah. And that was it. Yeah. You know, and plus, in football, you guys have your teammates, right? So let's talk. I love the fact you say you're a team guy first, because that's really, that's what it should be. It's a team sport. Yeah. So were you always like that? And or as you're showing up as as a camp guy, how do you integrate yourself to be more than just a camp guy and as a team guy?
I've always been that way. Like, the biggest thing to me in football is the respect of my teammates. Like, you kind of learn to block out the noise of like outside people that aren't in that circle and in that building. So to me, what they think of me and how they view me has always been the most important thing. So that's why, we had this thing that we used to say up in Canada. It was honor your teammates. Like, if you honor your teammates, that's the greatest thing you could ever do, because it's a team game. It's the greatest team game in the world. And so, I don't know, that's just kind of how it's always been. And so as a camp guy, like, it is easy to feel separated from the team. And that's one of the hardest things for me, is like, if you kind of not getting reps and you're not able to kind of prove yourself, like, it's hard. And so for me, there's nothing more fulfilling than going out there, performing well, earning the respect of my teammates, but also proving to myself that all those values of working hard and being a good teammate and being a good person, it will pay off. And so by performing well and just being a good person and being consistent on a day-to-day basis and, like you said, bringing good energy to the team in the room, I think guys just continue to respect you more and more, and that's how you build relationships.
Yeah. So yesterday, when I was talking to Lakin, we were just talking about you a little bit, and he was like, yeah, I remember when Chris came into the game, that first preseason game, he's like, hey, isn't that guy that used to block for us in practice? It wasn't he the one, like, you know, doing tight end stuff? I was like, oh, dude, that's so Chris.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you were just, again, being a team guy.
It's crazy because I was just talking about that with one of the other quarterbacks, and we were watching like the special teams drills, and like a week into camp, I could see I wasn't getting reps. So I go to the special teams coach. I'm like, look, I can add value to this team. I want to just be given an opportunity. Like, can I just do special teams? So I'm doing special teams. I'm on the scout team of punt rush, just, you know, going head first into people. But that's just who I am. Like, I just wanna contribute. I just want to be part of the team, and that's why I love football.
So when you do that, what do you think your teammates perceive?
Well, I hope that they just perceive that as someone who will do anything to help the team and isn't really worried about themselves. They just want to get out there to help. And, you know, I think it's funny to look back because it's like, okay, you know, you do some good things at quarterback. It's like, oh, that's hilarious. You were playing scout team punt rush just trying to get on the field when, you know, you did some good things at quarterback. And I think it just goes back to the respect. If you see someone working as hard as they can and doing everything they can to get on the field, you just respect that person, respect their grind and the way they go about their business. And I hope that that's what it's all about for me. I just want people to respect the way I go about my business and the way that I work. So
yeah, and I love it, man. Let's talk about your time in Canada.
Oh yeah,
because I think, you know, we have a couple guys in the CFL. It's a whole different game, different pace. Like, I mean, literally brand new skill set, right? The field's wider. Like, wide receiver have a running start, all of that stuff, right? You have 3 downs, right, instead of 4.
Yep.
This is my favorite rule. You need to have X amount of Canadian player on the team at one time. Literally my favorite, because there's got to be someone on there counting how many Canadian players on there.
100%.
Right?
I mean, football's a numbers game when it comes down to it. But yeah, you got to have half your team's Canadian. Yeah. And you got to start, I think it's 7 Canadians. So that really changes the game. And, you know, not a lot of people know about the CFL, but what I tell people is it's very competitive to make a team up there because of that, because half the team's Canadian. So you think there's 9 teams, there's 22 Americans on a team, that's 190 guys. That's not a lot of guys. And B, people sleep on the competition and the talent level up there. There's people, you know, a lot of people up there that have played in the NFL or could play in the NFL. But, you know, maybe they're 28 or 29, and it's like for the NFL to bring somebody in that's a 29-year-old rookie, like that just doesn't really happen. And so that's just what I always tell people is like, look, there's a lot of good players up there, and I think it happens the other way too, where you get guys that have been in the NFL and they come up, and I've seen it firsthand where they're saying, oh, you know, I'm going to be here for a month and I'm going back to the NFL. Those guys don't pan out because they don't respect the game. They don't respect the process and the players that are up there. And so I have nothing but respect for that game, and I had such a great time up there. I loved it.
How was it playing in like the super cold? I mean, the Grey Cup there is brutal, man.
It was cold. It was the coldest game I ever played in up there was the West semifinal. So 2 games before the Grey Cup, and we're playing in Calgary. And I had actually 2 weeks prior, I had fractured my ankle, tore a low ankle ligament, and had a grade 2 high ankle sprain. So I was just dealing with a bad ankle injury. Ended up just really, really wanted to play. So I ended up playing through it, and we're out there, and I think it was like -10 with the wind chill. The field's frozen. God. It was freezing, and it was just like, it was the coldest game, but that's not exactly what I remember as much as winning, because when you win, it's like, and you're winning, everything feels better. If you're losing and it's -10, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, like the fan love it up there. They show up super loyal. And listen, if you guys watch football and you watch college football, just remember Trent Richardson ended up in the CFL.
I'm telling you, man.
He only was not there for many seasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys in the league, or like I said, that could have been in the league that for whatever reason they just didn't make it down there. But man, there's great players up there, and like you said, the fans. I was in Winnipeg, and if anyone knows anything about the CFL, you know that Winnipeg fans are the best in the CFL. They're crazy. They show up. They just had the West Final there. and it was like, I think it was 10 degrees, and people are out there. I mean, full house. People are going crazy, and they just love it. They almost embrace the cold up there because it's, come February, it's negative 40 every day. And so they love football. There's not a ton going on up there, so they got the Winnipeg Jets and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the fans show up for every game, and they love it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So talk about how you adjust your mindset, because obviously going to the CFL is professional, but it's not the NFL. So how do you view that?
Again, for me, going into my senior year at South Dakota, I did not think I was going to have an opportunity to play professional football outside of maybe Europe. So when I got there, I was living my dream. Like, I wasn't making a ton of money because as a rookie, you're not, I think I was making 55,000 Canadian dollars for a whole season, which if you're following the exchange rate, that's not a ton of money.
Yeah.
But for me, I was just so happy to be able to play professional football, and that was my dream. That was, growing up as a kid. So I fully embraced it. And going back to what I said earlier, I think if you kind of overlook where you're at that time, like maybe you go to the CFL and in your mind you think you're better than the CFL and you don't respect it and don't put it in the work, it's not going to work out. So for me, when I was in the CFL, the NFL was not even in my mindset. I was completely committed to just being the best CFL player I could be. And even when I heard that teams wanted me to work out, I still just was like, I'm focused on the CFL, and however that stuff plays out, it'll play out the way that it needs to. But this is where my focus is right now because I owe that to myself and I owe that to my teammates.
And I love that point, man, because we have students who wants to be PT. We have athletes who want to go pro, right? And they always ask questions, which is always good. But at some point, you got to execute what you have in front of you, right? There's such thing as you say manifestation. But if you get too advanced, like you can't, like, imagine like an infant coming up to you is like, hey, Chris, how do you run so fast? And that infant is crawling.
Right.
You're like, bro, you got to walk first. Like, there's an evolution to things. And
100%.
make sure you do that job really well.
Right.
And, it's almost like a lost art. I don't know how it is now. Like, being a business owner, sometimes we have people who apply for jobs and you can see they just job hop all over the place. And I would ask them, like, why would you go to a different job? Like, oh, like I was just getting bored. I was like, doing the boring work is what works. Like my whole literally purpose right now is like, let's just keep doing the things that's working, which is the boring work. And for you, I remember you have your own thing. You're like, hey, I'm going to look up. I'm going to do 2 reads. If I don't see anything, I'm running.
Yeah.
That's always been your thing, right?
Yeah.
So this is not fancy stuff, but it's just like, you're not doing backyard football where you're scrambling and all of that, right? So how do you talk yourself? Again, you surrounded yourself by great athletes, and you see some of the things that these talented people, again, being in at the Cardinals, being in the Raven, you've seen these guys doing incredible stuff. How do you say, hey, this is my game. I'm not going to change it.
Yep. I think there's a lot of power in just being consistent. I think I know I'm not the most gifted person rolling out of bed. I'm not going to roll out of bed and be the best in the world at anything. I have to work and I have to be consistent every day. So that's where my mindset comes into place. It doesn't deter me to see someone that's better than me because I know that I'm going to work as hard as I can and do everything I can to be the best I can. And I'm going to do that on a consistent basis. And, it's easy to work hard one day. It's easy to, do something right once in a while. But like you said, the boring work, the consistent work, the stuff that you need to do on a day-to-day basis, that's what I'm going to do because I'm going to control the things I can control. And at the end of the day, I can live with that. I've beaten out a lot of players that are better than me, and I've won a lot of games against a lot of players that are better than me because of the work that I put in and the mindset of just continuing to be consistent and stay true to me.
Yeah. I love it, man. The consistency is everything. I always have a saying, like, and to myself, like, like I work hard, but like someone asked me, like, hey, what's your superpower? I was like, I'm just persistent. Like, I just don't stop. Like, I don't stop until, I pursue what I want. Yeah. And if I don't get it the first time around, I'll figure out another way to do it. But the whole thing is, like, the objectives stay the same. Like, I used to get super distracted, and it was really easy to get distracted, right? Especially for you, right? Let's go back. Being distracted as in you could go play wide receiver, but you're like, no, I just rather stick down to this. Yeah. Right? How was that conversation? Because I'm sure you have, like, what was the conversation like with your friends? Because most of them would be like, half of them I would say, hey, dude, go play a receiver. Yeah. It's a great opportunity. Yeah. And then the other half say, well, do what you want.
Well, I think in terms of the distraction, that's just the world we live in now, where everyone's worried about like looking cool and like being on Instagram and like having that clout and like, oh, like I should go to the big school because that's what's going to look cool. And that's kind of the world that we live in now. But and it's easy to kind of get caught up in that and say, oh, you know, like I think Arizona State was one of the schools that wanted me to come out and play receiver. And it's just like, it was cool. Like it did entertain my mind. Like, oh, Arizona State, like, oh, Arizona, like, wow, that's so cool. I should do that. But then it's like, I'm not really worried about how other people perceive what I'm doing. I'm just going to do what I want to do and do it to the best of my ability. And again, I think it's so easy, like, for people, like you gave that example of people job hopping. Like, it's the same world we live in now with football, with the transfer portal and people transferring. Like, we live in a world where people don't really have to overcome adversity as much. They just kind of like, oh, well, I'm not playing right away. Like, I'm just going to transfer and go somewhere else. And there is a time and place for that. But at the same time, I think when adversity hits, again, like I said before, you grow. When you overcome that and continue to be persistent, like you said, persistent, consistent, whatever, and you push through that, you grow and you learn a lot about yourself. And I think nowadays when you just jump from place to place and do what other people think looks good and just kind of avoid adversity to try to have an easy path, you don't learn as much about yourself. I have a ton of perspective at the age of 27 because of I've transferred. I've gone to Canada. I've been cut 4 times in the last year. You know, I've been injured. I've played through injuries. I've had season-ending injuries. I can relate to pretty much any situation that someone's going through because I've pushed through that adversity in my life, and now I can give perspective on it because I've pushed through it, and I'm still sitting here in the NFL, and I'm still sitting here in this chair. You know, so.
And there's another side of the same coin where you can be hyper focused and not allow yourself to celebrate the small wins, right?
Yes.
So how do you balance that?
That was something I had to learn because I couldn't. When I first got to Minnesota, like you're a freshman and I graduated high school early, so I'm there early and like I struggled and it really really bothered me because I didn't know how to relax and take it off my mind. Like if I had a bad day at football, it would ruin my whole day, and I'm sitting at home just thinking about it. And when you do that, it just snowballs, and then you can never let it go. And whatever people do, like everyone has their own process, but for me, like it's really important that I'm able to, you know, let some of that stuff go after a day and just do whatever I need to do to just come back. So, you know, for me, like right now, you know, my girlfriend just moved out here. I have my dog at home. Like those are really good perspective shifters for me because I can come home and like I'm just surrounded by love, you know, and it just kind of puts into perspective like, hey, there's more things going on than football. And you know, in terms of perspective, like I just went to South Dakota last weekend, and you know, I got to go talk to the team, and I'm in the dome, and like that was 5 years ago that I was there. And so like that perspective for me of like, wow, 5 years ago I was grinding in Vermillion, South Dakota, and now I'm in New York playing for the Jets. Like I don't need any more perspective than that to just have such an appreciation for where I'm at and just try to make the most of every day.
I love it, man, because you know, you can easily get lost in the grind, right?
Oh, yeah.
Again, that's the biggest thing, and it's so good to just go back to see where you start, just to at least acknowledge how far you've come. And you know, for me, like every time I walk into this building, I feel the same way. You know, I always take the time, maybe like every few months, I would drive down to New York, to Nyack, my hometown. I would drive past where I grew up, which is like a 1-bedroom apartment. I would sit in the bus stop where I used to take the bus to go to work.
Yeah.
And like, to me, I'm just like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And like the life I'm living now is a blessing, right? And just to appreciate that.
100%. There's nothing more motivating than that too, because you're like, man, think about where I came from and like look at where I'm at now. Like I just want to keep pushing because when I was there, I was grinding and I was pushing, and now I'm here and it's easier. So it's even easier for me to keep grinding and pushing. And that's how I feel when I walk into the Jets every day. It's like, I feel like in my mind I shouldn't even be here, so it makes it that much easier to work as hard as I can every day and to just have a good attitude and appreciate everything because, you know, 3 months ago I was telling you, I'm like, look, I don't know if I'm going to be here. Like I might go back to Canada. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And so to be there and to you to have this space coming from where you came from, and like for me to feel like my career might have been over and like now I'm still in the NFL, like I just appreciate that and it motivates me every day.
Yeah. And it makes the present like so much sweeter, right? Because that's all we have, which is, you know, what in front of us and the opportunity it's giving for us. And just to go back to like even the previous point, you know, always staying ready, right? And for me, when you stay ready, you have the the sight to look for opportunity. And because if you're not staying ready, you wouldn't look for it, right? Because you're staying ready. It's almost like if you were a hunter, you have a bow and arrow, right? And you're aiming, you're looking for something to shoot at.
Yeah.
But if you're not aiming, what are you looking for? Right? So the fact that if you stay mentally sharp, staying ready when the opportunity comes so you can strike, like we talk about strike when the iron's hot, right? The hardest part, there's this quote that I read on my multivitamin pack from Onnit, and it's, they say, don't wait to strike when the iron's hot. Make it hot by striking.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, and that's just a switch thing. It's like you just keep striking it until it's hot.
Yeah.
And then you make your own opportunity.
And if you're not focused on you and worried about what's going on, it's easy to make excuses. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to make excuses and say, oh, well, this person started out with more than me, or maybe this person, his parents were in the NFL. Like he said on Easy Street. None of that matters.
Yeah.
All that matters is what you're doing. Like, you can't compare yourself to other people because everyone's had a different journey and has a different process. But, you just can't compare yourself and make excuses. Like, you just got to focus on you.
Yeah. And what I love is that point of all it is just taking control back to yourself, right? So very similar parallel of being, a quarterback and running a business is that, I learned this from Damon John, right? The guy from Shark Tank. He was like, hey, as a business owner, as someone who's in leadership role, like failure is an orphan, but success have many parents. Just like when you win a game, the first thing you say, hey, we played great, the team played great, so-and-so did well, the line did well, our defense did great, right? But when something bad happens, like, hey, I didn't see that read, that was all me.
Hey, that's being a quarterback. That's being a leader. Like, you're always taught, when you win, you pass the success on to other people. When you lose, it's on you. But I think that's how you grow too, because you look, all right, what can I do better? And going back to being a team guy, that's what being a team guy is. Like, you got to eat those failures as a leader. That's part of being a leader. But you got to build up your team around you when you have success. And, I couldn't agree more with that quote. That's what it's all about.
Was there a role model or another team guy that you were emulating as you were growing up, right? Because we all have to follow someone.
I mean, I was always like a really big fan of the way Tim Tebow played in college. Like, he was just running over linebackers. Yeah, jump pass and like running over linebackers. I was always a big fan of Tom Brady, like just him being a winner and a competitor and like, 6th round pick. I thought that was inspiring. But, like the biggest person I learned from was really my dad. Like, at a young age, even playing Pee Wee, like he would be like, well, if you want to win the Super Bowl this year, you want to be a champion, like you got to work hard. So like in 5th grade, I remember I'd go in my backyards, put my helmet and pads on, I'd run sprints in my backyard to get ready. In 7th grade, I put myself on my first, nutrition plan. Like, I wouldn't eat Pop-Tarts and Cheez-Its until Sunday. And, I had like a bike path in my neighborhood I mapped out. It was 4 miles, and I'd take my bike around it 4 times, and I'd bike like 16 miles a day in 7th and 8th grade because I wanted to. Those are the values that he instilled in me. Is if you want to do good and you want to be good and you have these goals and dreams, then you have to work for it. And so he was the biggest person that kind of just drilled that into me from a young age of just, you got to work hard and control these controllables, and think good things will happen for you.
Yeah, very similar to like with Jordan. I mean, I don't know if you're a big Jordan and Kobe fan like I am. Like, so like even with those guys, right? I was watching the Redeem Team. I know you saw that.
I haven't watched that yet. It's on my list.
It's so good. And like, but Kobe just coming in and he just like this is the best part, right? Kobe's came in. All the guys wanted to go out. They went out. They came back, and they went because they were in Vegas at the time. They came back home to the hotel at 4 a.m. and they walked past Kobe. Kobe was on his way to the gym to go work out. And then he goes do his weight training. Then he does the practice. The next day, D Wade, LeBron, all those guys now showing up to the gym with Kobe at 4 a.m. Right. But it's all just again having like just doing those little things, right? Just working on it. Because I'm sure Kobe he's always been that guy. I mean, I have massive respect for him. Yeah.
It's like the same thing with in the Last Dance documentary with MJ, and like there's that one part, I think it's like the 6th or 7th episode, and he's like kind of talking about like, did people think I was mean? Did people think I was a tyrant? Maybe, but as a leader, I never asked other people to do something that I wasn't willing to do. And so as a leader, you have to set that tone, and it's kind of the same thing with Kobe. Like, do I think there's a time and place to go out with the teammates and have a good night and come home at 4 a.m.? Absolutely. But there also is times as a leader where you got to do stuff that's, you got to push people around you. And the best way to do that for me has always been to just work hard and set that example of like, this is what I'm doing as a leader. And so if you guys want to be on this level, then follow me and we'll all get better together. And I love those examples because those are two of like the best leaders and just killers. You know what I mean? Like when it's crunch time, those are the dudes you want with the ball in their hand because they've put in that work and they've got that mindset for it.
Yeah. And so let's talk about you evolving as a person, right? As you are evolving, some of your friends might not come with you. And this, I've seen this with a lot of my high school, college guys because, you know, again, not everybody's going to, you can't take everybody up. Right. So how do you adjust that? And how do you figure out that when was the last time you say like, oh, you know what, it's okay. Like that I lose some friendship then and there because and how do you deal with it?
To me, it's just I'm always so focused on where I'm at. So, you know, if people are falling out of my life, it's okay because I'm focused on where I'm at. And it's kind of been a point of emphasis for me to like keep better in touch with people around me because I'm so focused on like in the season, like it's easy for me to fall off relationships with people because I'm so just busy and focused on what's at hand. So if people around me fall off or that used to be, you know, friends or whatever, and, you know, we kind of grow apart, that's natural. But, you know, like the people that understand you and have been with you through some of those grind times and have kind of came up with you, those are the people you really make an effort to keep around with you and maintain those relationships. And over the last couple of years, it's been something that's been more of an emphasis for me is like continue to reach out to those people and, you know, just tell them you love them and you care about them and that, you know, you want them to be part of your success just the same way that I want to be a part of their success. And so it's kind of cool to see as we all become adults, like, you know, that effort becomes more because you're not living down the street from your best friend in college anymore. Yeah. You got to reach out and, you know, it's been cool to grow and maintain relationships with a lot of people that I love and care about and vice versa.
Now, what about protecting your time? Because obviously you have your routine.
I'm so bad at it, dude. I'm so bad. My girl calls me out all the time
really?
Because I'm such a yes man. Like if somebody asks me to do something and like I won't even consider how it fits into my schedule, but like I'll drive like, oh yeah, can you do this at 2:00? And then I'm over here at noon. Like, oh yeah, I'll drive an hour over there to do it. My girl always calls me out. She's like, you gotta be able to either say no or work some of these things into like the same place so you can package it all in. And you know, she's really good at that. She's super organized and like, you know, I kind of we joke that she's my little secretary. You know, it keeps me organized. But like, I'm so bad at protecting my time, and it's something that I got to get better at, especially as moving into this off season. You know, I'm going to be doing different stuff. Like, I'm going to be investing more in real estate, and I'm starting up my own, you know, quarterback coaching business with one of my buddies out in Arizona. So it's like there's going to be more on my plate, and I think, I mean, you know, as a business owner, like, there's so many stuff that you have to handle on a day-to-day basis, and it's important to be organized with your time.
Yeah, but again, I mean, from a professional perspective, from what I've seen, you do organize pretty well. Where you make sure you get your treatment when you need to, you show up, you get your lift, and all of that stuff. And I mean, I do think like from that perspective, you do it well. As far as like, let's say high school kids go into their first year of college, because things are different, right? Yeah. Structure is different. How do you protect your time as in, hey, I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to do this and that. I'm going to say no. This is what I have to do, you know, because that's what you have to do.
It's all time management. Yeah. And it's so different being a professional where this is my job, right? Taking care of my body, getting my treatment, like that's my job. So I have no problem prioritizing that. As a student going from high school to college, like there's more on your plate and there's a lot more distractions and you're kind of on your own for the first time. And I came in with good study habits from high school because I went to a really hard college prep high school. But, you know, the biggest thing is like it's so easy to goof around and not take like study hall and that time that's allotted for you seriously. But use those resources. Like if you're going to be in there for 2 hours, get your stuff done. And then you can do what you want to do after that. But, you know, you got to take that time seriously because if you're goofing around in study hall for 2 hours and then, you know, you didn't finish your paper, now you're staying up late. Not only is that going to affect you in the classroom, but it's also going to affect you on the field because now you're staying up late and you're stressed about other things and you can't fully focus on what's at hand and whether that's you got early morning running and lifting, you're going to lose out on that. So it's going to hurt you in every aspect. So you just got to make it a priority to take advantage of the resources that are given to you. Get tutors if you need them. Use that study hall time. I mean, they give you unlimited resources now in college. Like everything's at your disposal.
You get to sign up for your class early. Dude. You get all the great classes. You get tutor, all of that stuff. And I love what you touched on, which is, you know, the order of consequence, right? If you don't do your stuff in the study hall, now you have extra work. Then because you have extra work, you're gonna stay up late. You stay up late. Now you're gonna miss practice. You miss practice. You're gonna miss reps. It's literally just a cascading effect. And like for people to start thinking like that, you would then structure your life a lot differently, right? It's like as an adult, I have to look like, all right, well, if I stay up late, I'm not going to be able to do my job the next day. I can't do my job. I can't pay my bills. Like, this is where people go into a downward spiral.
Yeah, and you don't want to fall down that downward spiral of like, oh man, if I don't go to bed early now, I can't pay my bills and I'm not going to go to work. It's not as much about that. It's more about like understanding how every action has a consequence. You go to bed early and you do everything on time, then you can go to bed stress-free and wake up in the morning feeling good about life and do what you need to do that day. And it's just more about that on a day-to-day basis and, again, being consistent. If you're consistently going to bed late and not doing those things right, now you're snowballing. You know what I mean? One time, I get it. Things come up. But, like, having consistent habits on a day-to-day basis, that's how you see progress because you're doing things right day after day. It's easy for anyone that's like, oh, I'm on a diet. I'm going to eat salad today, and I'm going to eat healthy. And then you go eat a cheeseburger the next day. Well, it's like you didn't really do anything. You did it one day. But if you want to see progress and you eat healthy for 30 days straight and really commit to that, you're going to see progress. And it's the same thing with anything else in your life.
Yeah. So as I'm getting older, I'm 34, and what I realize is that at a certain age, it's not about what I'm doing, it's about what I'm stopped doing.
Yeah.
Like, I just had that realization. It's like, wait, it's not needing to work more. It's like I have to work less and work on something else first, allocating my time. So what has been that shift for you since now you've been in the league for 5 years? Is there any any insight you gained recently?
I mean, the biggest insight was when I just, again, going back to the preseason, it was me not playing, not taking reps, and just continuing to work hard. That validated my whole mindset of continue to work hard, continue to be consistent, do the little things right, and treat people good, and everything will work out. And that's been my biggest realization is I look at that and I'm at peace because no matter what happens in my life moving forward, that mindset has been validated for me now. So it will always be my mindset because I will always believe that if you live your life that way, good things will happen to you and eventually things will work out. So that was the biggest validation I've recently had.
Yeah. And that's awesome, man. And so before we finish this, so Kareem is one of our pro guys who just met back there. We were just chatting before and he gave me this gem where I was like, I have to share it with you, with everybody who's listening to it. And he was saying one of his athletes came up to him and he was like, hey, Coach Reem, give me something. And he's like, all right, if God were to watch you play today, how would you play? And I think to me, that's oh my God. That's not even if your parents who watch you, if God was to watch you, how do you play? How would you react? And I would apply that to hey, if God were to watch you today in your practice, in what you do at work, what you do in school, how would you do it? Yeah. Right?
That's just holding yourself to the highest standard, and you have to hold yourself to the highest standard, and that's what it is. If God's watching you, what are you going to do? You're going to do things right all the time. So hold yourself to that standard at all times. I love that. That's a great quote, especially for a kid. A kid to hear that puts things in perspective.
It's powerful, man. So listen, dude, thank you so much, man.
It's been awesome.
So many gems. I really appreciate it. Guys, please, obviously, go follow him. Where can people find you?
Instagram, Twitter, Cstrevy. I think on Instagram I'm Cstrevy5. But yeah, man, appreciate you having me on. I've loved our talks as I come in here all the time. We're always we're very like-minded individuals, even though we have very different lives, but there's a lot of correlation there, and I'm thankful to call you a friend, man, and this has been awesome.
Likewise, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, it's great.